What are some of the most mind-blowing, little-known facts that will completely change the way we see the world? Benford's Law. How large datasets of numbers behave in very predictable ways. It's one of the easiest ways to detect if a company is cooking its books. At one point, the human population was between 1,000 and 10,000. We came so close to going extinct. Every element heavier than lithium had to be created in the core of a star. Every element heavier than iron had to be created by a supernova. Grizzly bears in Yellowstone eat around 300,000 moths a month, and it accounts for 1/3 of their calorie intake. A female turkey can lay an egg that doesn't need to be fertilized by a male turkey, and the baby that hatches will always be a male. If you stand in any planet or moon of the solar system and you look up, you'll see the same night sky as we see it from the Earth. Same constellations and all. That's how unfathomably far away the stars are compared to the planets. However, there's one exception. If you stand in Pluto and look up, you'll see that Proxima Centauri looks slightly off compared to its position from the terrestrial sky. That's how unfathomably far Pluto is as well. There are only about 25 blimps in the world. You always have more knowledge than you can put into words. Michael Polanyi. You can never fully articulate, for example, all of the knowledge that you rely on in order to ride a bicycle. There is always some remaining knowledge that you're leaving unspoken. Polanyi's book Personal Knowledge blew my mind. Just how capable ancient humans were. At least 50,000 years ago, humans crossed about 60 miles of open ocean and colonized Australia. The timeline for colonizing America has been consistently pushed back. For tens of thousands of years, modern humans coexisted with other ancient hominids, essentially but not quite the same as us, but close enough to breed and produce viable, non-sterile offspring. I find it absolutely mind-blowing to think about. Cheetahs aren't big cats, they are very large small cats. Only 3% of the Earth's water is fresh water, and less than 1/3 of that isn't frozen. During the Cold War, the American government set up a fake metal mining company, then had them get set up in the Soviet Union because the metal that was needed for the SR-71 could only be found in Russia. The Americans mined and paid for Russian metal that gave the Americans the ability to spy uninhibited on the Russians. The use of fingerprinting can be traced back to China in the 700s for identification. It wasn't used for forensics until the 1800s. San Juan. Puerto Rico should be named Puerto Rico, San Juan. It got mixed up by a map maker. Not sure if it's a little known fact, but it blew my tiny mind when I learned that there have been sharks on Earth for longer than there have been trees. Babies can die from lack of love. Human touch, cuddles, hugs, nuzzles. Woolly mammoths still roamed when the pyramids were built. There are more stars in the universe than there are grains of sand on planet Earth. The follow-up used to be that there are more atoms in a grain of sand than there are stars in the universe. But recent research has shown you need a whole gram of sand to have as many atoms as there are stars in the universe. The energy stored in all the oil and gas in the Earth is the equivalent of just 8.5 days worth of sunlight hitting the surface of the planet. It took humans less than 66 years from first discovering the flight, 1903, to landing a man on the moon, 1969. The fax machine was invented at the same time that the Oregon Trail migration was occurring. Cambridge University is 200 years older than the Aztec Empire. All humans share 99.9% of the same DNA. The 0.1% is what makes us different. The US military, through much trial and effort, has determined a minimum intelligence level required to comprehend and perform the most basic tasks through boot camp, like folding your clothes neatly, paying attention to fold points and creases, and storing them neatly in your locker, how to lace your shoes, how to assemble a rifle, etc. And fully 10% of the US population fails to meet this minimum level. Something like this is asked every once in a while. The pale blue dot quote by Carl Sagan really puts our lives in perspective. Helped me not take life too seriously. Some backstory: the Voyager 1 space probe took a picture of the Earth at 6 billion kilometers. Look again at that dot. That's here. That's home. That's us. On it, everyone you love, everyone you know, Everyone you ever heard of, every human being who ever was, lived out their lives. The aggregate of our joy and suffering, thousands of confident religions, ideologies, and economic doctrines, every hunter and forager, every hero and coward, every creator and destroyer of civilization, every king and peasant, every young couple in love, every mother and father, hopeful child, inventor and explorer, every teacher of morals, every corrupt politician, every superstar, every supreme leader, every saint and sinner in the history of our species lived there, on a mote of dust suspended in a sunbeam. The first time I read it, I teared up. I still feel something every time I reread the quote or think about it. Most people value short-term good feelings more than long-term stability. If you understand this, much in the world will be better understandable to you. New York Harbor used to have trillions of oysters. Over 99% of all species to ever exist on Earth are extinct. The difference between a million and a million seconds is about 11 days. A billion seconds is about 1.5 years. Now think about the billionaires. Not little known, but perhaps less thought about or internalized. Large amounts of children were born from most families in the past, due to a horrible rate of infant-child mortality. Nearly everyone had outlived one or more of their children. That's horrifying. What we consider the most base of basic medical science, that we teach our young children, has saved countless lives and families. Wash your hands, please. Dinosaurs evolved on the other side of the Milky Way galaxy. No, it's true. Because approximately 250 million years ago when they evolved, our solar system was on the other side of the galaxy to where it is now. There are approximately 3 trillion trees on our planet Earth. That between 14 to 140 million new stars ignite into existence somewhere in our universe every minute. Vacuum decay. Essentially, at any given moment without warning, the universe could cease to exist and never exist again. Apollo Guidance Computer, which was the Apollo 11 spacecraft that landed humans on Moon, Command Module had on board a machine that had 64 kilobytes of memory and operated at 0.043 megahertz. There are more bacteria cells in your body than human cells. Experiments suggest that subconscious parts of our brain start sending signals to perform actions well before the conscious part of our brain makes the decision to do it. Sometimes it's a few microseconds earlier. Sometimes it can be minutes, depending on what's being done and what prep is needed. The implication is that decisions are actually made at the subconscious level, and what we think of as the conscious process of making a decision may actually be more like justifying a decision. This is backed up by split brain experiments, where epileptics have had the two halves of their brain severed and unable to communicate. They'd put up a partition and hold up a sign, asking one half to pick up a pencil. Then they'd ask the other half, which controls speech, why they did it. And they'd quickly come up with sometimes ludicrous rationales for why they did it. It seems our brains have built-in expert mechanisms to justify actions after the fact. Gravity causes an attraction between objects with mass and works across vast distances. People have mass, which means we're all, slightly, attracted to each other. When I wave my arm like I'm doing now, I'm moving the atoms in your body, wherever you happen to be. Animal numbers in Africa are still recovering to their historic levels, after rinderpest almost wiped out most ungulates, things with hooves in the 1800s, introduced from Europe of course. It wiped out so many animals that the environment changed with it, and also helped ignite the scramble for Africa by causing famines. The pots of honey found by archaeologists in the Egyptian pyramids are still edible, even being more than 3,000 years old. Hershey chocolate and Hershey ice cream are two completely separate and unrelated companies. Before there was stuff that ate dead trees, the dead trees just piled up and didn't decompose and they became coal. 53% of the world does not kiss romantically. There's a theory that explains why humans are universally attracted to shiny things. It's because we are hardwired to seek out water, and the sun dappling on water is, of course, shiny. There are more people living in slavery now than at any time in human history. Using garlic bread as buns for a meatball marinara sandwich is fire. Pablo Picasso died 5 years after Martin Luther King Jr. was killed. Lions aren't very good climbers, but they can leap forward 36 feet.